been a bit since we had a full-fledged episode, but here we are. Jack Purdy here. Jake and Akshay will join me a little bit later in the episode. I've got another Jack son here, Jackson Caudell, to help us out with. Because here's the thing. I was telling him before the episode, in the history of science of the Southland, we have never, it's never been really worth the time to talk about the football recruits we had coming in. Because when the podcast started, that was fresh in the other guys' years, and I think the results speak for themselves there. But this 2025 class, which is now up to 16 commits as of like literally an hour ago, and apparently possibly another one's going to drop today if we're lucky. Um, this it's looking Georgia Tech football recruiting is now a thing that actually seems to matter and seems to be making actual waves. And this has been a trend throughout the entire institute, go from both basketball teams, volleyball has always been great, but now it's finally hitting football, which is the thing we've been needing for so long. So Jackson, um, the 20th as of now could be better by the time we're done recording if we're lucky. 20th ranked recruiting class in the country for 2025 belongs to Georgia Tech. That is not a thing I think either of us expected to be able to say about a year ago.
No, but I think when I start talking about recruiting, everybody should go read. I forget exactly who wrote it. There's a piece at the Athletic where they interview a lot of anonymous high school coaches in the state of Georgia, and especially around the Atlanta area,
Mm-hmm.
and like they praise Brent Key and his staff like just so much, and I think that offers you a glimpse into what is going on now.
Yeah,
Like recruiting
yeah,
is a process that takes a few years. Like you start recruiting these kids a while back, and you keep them in mind. You build relationships, having relationships with high school coaches, and like I know a lot, like the coaches themselves are going to get a lot of the credit, and they should. But I think you also have to look. Brent Key has made some very good hires on the support staff, whether it be Aaron Joe as general manager, just a lot of people that bring good relationships and have either coached at high schools, worked at high schools. Like I think there's a lot that goes into it. So I think it shows you the results that are being put out now show you the results of Key putting in a lot of work behind the scenes to make this a reality.
yeah.
And
I remember. Yeah, I remember an R.A. Wasserman piece about if there was one section. Must have been 2 or 3 years ago. I couldn't even tell you how to search for it at this point. But just like where all things equal, should it be the easiest place to recruit? And we were in that list of easiest places to recruit because we were in the smack middle of football talent heaven right now in Atlanta. We have extreme access to so many places in Georgia. And you get to live in Atlanta, and plus the academic side of it and everything. Like this is a slam dunk of a deal. And we were not recruiting in our backyard. That was the big complaint for way too long was why can't we get our own guys? Like, yes, I know there's 18 different legitimate fantastic schools and football programs really within an hour and a half drive of here, but you still couldn't keep the backyard in the backyard. And this right now we're at 10 guys from Georgia, and at least nine offensive players uh right now in this class are from Georgia, and including Decatur and Metro Atlanta. So
yeah,
they've turned on. They have they're tapping it. Is all the what you're saying? Like they're doing that work finally and doing it well.
yes. And the thing I think you have to keep in mind is like you're not going to get them all. Like
No,
the
no,
talent area is just so big, and you're competing with a lot. And it's a little bit like not to really go be off about them, but like a lot of complaints from like Miami is like there's so much talent here. Why is Miami not better? And it's like well, you
mm-hmm.
can't keep all the talent in. It's just
Right,
recruiting's a lot different, and like I think they've taken a good approach to that. And look, we'll see where this class ends up because one thing, not to be Debbie Downer or anything, I just think, recruiting rankings in June, it's going to matter a whole lot more in December.
yeah,
Can you get enough guys to stay in this? And like, I think they can. I'm not at all saying they can't, but that's kind of what I'm more interested in because there are a
right,
lot of schools I think up in the recruiting rankings that, a lot of it right now early on is how many commits you have. And I think you want to have both quantity and quality, and we'll
yeah.
see how that plays out because I think they did jump into the top 25 a year ago, and then they finished, I think, in the top
They were
35.
third. Yeah, they were 33rd, I think.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like that's not terrible. We'll just see where it ends up. But yeah, like as far as everything's going right now, like it's hard to ask for much better. Like I don't know
Right,
if
yeah. And I mean, and I think on the flip side of this, we also are not losing guys,
sure.
major guys to the portal. And for a fact, those guys, some of these guys absolutely had to have been contacted or something under the table, behind the door, whatever. Like we showed some real talent. We literally laid out the blueprint of how to beat Georgia, and then just a little bit of a better team, then just went up and just took Buster Faulkner's game plan and ran with it and won the whatever that bowl game was, Peach Bowl. Um, and then guess who's got a contract extension as of today? Buster Faulkner. For another year. And he got a $200,000 raise for this upcoming season. So we're gonna pay him $1 million this year, and I think that's gonna be a well earned $1 million, considering what we have with the. But yeah, like combined, as you said, a lot of returners, a lot of the key offensive returning starters as well. Defense had its own things to work with, but they slowly got better. Um,
It
and
can't
the
get much worse.
No, it can't get much. I mean, there's the fact that Syracuse game scared us as much as it did because their backup tight end could run on us. That's when you know you got a little bit of a problem. But thank God we got that game taken care of. Um, yeah. So it just thinking about it from 30,000 feet, this is a much different vibe. Like people believe what's coming out of Tech for right now. That was the big job that Brent had to repair, was that image of that what was coming out of Tech was real and actually meant something. It was, and also like he loves Tech too. That matters a lot. That he actually believes in the product he is selling. I think we all know for a fact Jeff did not believe or understand even the product he was selling whatsoever. He was trying to sell Atlanta. He was not selling Georgia Tech, which are two very, very different things.
Well, yeah, and then like think about it. If it's pretty good right now, if the results keep coming and you keep winning, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like it theoretically should get better,
Yeah.
you would think.
Yeah. No, I think it's a fair way to put it. I mean, this obviously the schedule not ideal, but still somewhat attractive in a you get to play these really unique games that very few are ever going to get a chance to play in, which that means something for sure. Um, yeah, there is something about the energy of this team right now, like they want to play together, which is not a universal thing in FBS and really hard to maintain in FBS considering how many various distractions there are and how many money bags are out there to pull you any which way. So let's get into some of these guys here. So as you said, 20th ranked right now for 2025. We were 25th as until like literally an hour ago. So just this most recent guy, Isaiah Groves, jumped us up 5 spots apparently. We've had 13 commits just in this month, and as you said, there's gonna be more down the line. This class will not get short up for a little while, but at least where we're sitting now, this is the list of guys we have. I'll read them out and then we'll dive into a few of them. Andre Fuller Jr., defensive end. Grady Adamson, quarterback, who's a big guy we got from Oklahoma. Justin Hasenhoidl from Raven Gap. Jimmy Bryson from Chattanooga. Rashawn Dinkins from Warner Robins. J.P. Powell from Colquitt. Connor Roush from Norcross. Kevin P. from Lancaster, South Carolina. Dalen Penson from Sandy Creek. Phoenix Felton from McDonough. Jamari Bryce from Cartersville. Sam Turner from Decatur. Harrington Coombs from Decula. Kevin Roche from Darling, Connecticut, Jaden Barr from Covington, and then Groves today from Cross Plains, Tennessee. 4 of these are 4 stars, and then Phoenix Felton I know is the big get, and then a quarterback get in Grady Adamson. So when you've looked at the guys so far, Jackson, how I mean, obviously the recruiting rate can show for themselves, but what has this told you in terms of like what Brent's trying to do here with this group? What just impressions?
I I think obviously getting a lot of the guys from the state of Georgia is a pretty big deal. And like some of the guys, like I've talked at length about Sam Turner on my podcast, even before he committed. Like that was just a guy I really wanted them to get. I think he's kind of flying under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
And look, it's said a million times is like even some people look down upon 3-star prospects, but when you see where they come from, if they're coming from the state of Georgia, and a lot of other places they might be putting up a whole lot more production could be considered 4 stars. Like I do think there is truth to the saying of a 3-star in Georgia or a 3-star in Florida or a couple other places like California and Texas could be better than some 4 stars in maybe a not as big football state. Like I do think there's some truth in that. And I think Sam Turner is kind of the guy there. And I know he's a 4-star on some places as well. I know on 247 Sports he's a 3-star.
Mm-hmm.
Rashawn Dinkins is a guy I've been a fan of a long time. Look, I know a coach down at Warner Robins. He's been praising him for a while, and he thinks this is a really big get for Georgia Tech. I would tend to agree. I think just the overall job they've done in the secondary, like you were talking about Phoenix Felton, I think that was a big get.
Yep.
Getting 4-star cornerback Dalen Pinson over Notre Dame.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was Kentucky was in there, I think, as well. I love that. I think Grady Adamson. I think is one of the more underrated QBs in the country, and I think if they can continue to I think they've done a good job in the quarterback room as a whole. Obviously, Zach Pyron, we know he's pretty talented as a backup. You get both Aaron Philo and Graham Mills last year. You add
Hmm.
Grady Adams into the mix. Like, keep that position stocked up. I know he doesn't maybe have the national acclaim as some others, but I think right now I trust the job that they're doing there, and I think other people have praised him as well. Um, Jaden Barr is another one I think is flying really under the radar. I think you're going to hear a lot more about him as the recruiting cycle goes on. But those would be my favorite guys right now. But I don't really have a negative thing to say about any of them. Like I think they're
Yeah.
definitely getting some high potential guys, and we'll see how their senior year goes.
Yeah, I want to highlight Grady Adamson because, as I mentioned, he's from Oklahoma, and we are not exactly anywhere close to Oklahoma geographically. Or, I mean, the closest we'll get is we play men's basketball this year for the first time in a long time. I just want to list up the places that offered him. Oklahoma for one, North Texas, I believe Tulane offered him, Dartmouth offered him. Okay, Sam Houston, UNLV, South Florida, Boston College, Syracuse, Kent State, and we were one of the last teams to offer him. Oh, Pitt offered him as well. And so like he was getting recruited outside of his backyard, of course, but we were much later down the stretch here than he was from other schools, which seemed like to be the case for a number of these guys. Like we weren't exactly the first schools
Yeah,
these guys were going to, but we made a very someone's making a convincing argument now. I mean, I assume it's Brent and all of his guys, but
well, I
this
think if you're a quarterback, like I think the having Buster Faulkner there and seeing what he did with Haynes King and seeing what he did with the offense, like that has to be appealing. Like,
no, that's yeah, that's the real thing.
you
And you
want to
could
go to you want to go to Pitt and play quarterback?
not really know. I don't want to. I mean, yeah. Also, it says he was recruited by Winky, from
Sure.
our staff. So no, I mean, yeah, there is a my football idiom, having never coached a team above a middle school team or studied a playbook enough or played a single position. The thing I at least know is you can never have enough quarterbacks. That is just not a thing, especially in college, as we saw with Florida State, most notably. Uh, like you got to
I
have these
made a
guys.
note on my podcast. Look, this is I just a preface. Like I'm not at all saying the two are similar quarterback rooms. Just before, but I
Yeah,
think the best managed quarterback room, in my opinion, is Ohio State. Like even
mm-hmm.
when they had Justin Fields, you're going out and getting C.J. Stroud. You're still
Yep,
recruiting these 4 stars. They take Will Howard from Kansas State. They've got these other highly recruited kids in there. But once the number one QB in the country, Julian Sayin, leaves Alabama, what do? They go get him. Like you can't have enough talented quarterbacks. I
yeah,
know it's not the same. I understand that, but it's just get guys you think are talented, keep adding them, no matter to me what the numbers say, and like you should hit on somebody. Like you're
yeah.
not going to obviously hit on
Right.
every single one of them. Like that would be insane if you did.
It's a much bigger gamble than the NFL guys have, which is
Yeah,
you
like
only
if
have.
you keep throwing enough darts, like you should land somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can go back all the way to Cardell Jones for that quarterback room. Like,
Exactly.
legitimately won a national title because of their quarterback depth, which is kind of insane. That usually doesn't happen. You can think like it's that and Nick Foles. Those are the examples right now of people that have like actually gone out and won as a backup in a real way. Um, yeah, no, I think that's a big no here. Who I want to go back to Sam Turner because he's the closest to campus. Went to Southwest to goes to Southwest to Cab. He had offers from other notable. He had offers from what Maryland, Georgia State had gone to him. Georgia had offered him in February. Mississippi State got to him. Connecticut got to him. Akron was the first school that got to him. So a variety there, but that is that the big dog came a knocking, and to not take an off that I think that I want to look at that specifically to not take an offer from UGA. I mean, granted, living in Decatur, it's a much different thing. No, you know your home is and things like that. That obviously I think speaks a lot here. Um, but to turn down the what seems to be going to be the annual favorites to win a national title for the next forever. Uh, that's not nothing because rings do live forever. Uh, but also playing time matters
Yeah, like
and the
they're
room you're
they're
in.
battling for several other recruits down the stretch. Like it's not just him. Like there's some more battles going on here as well. So we'll see how those turn out. But you gotta put your big boy pants on when you go to recruiting battles with Kirby Smart and those guys. So and they've done that. Like they haven't shied away from it.
Yeah. Dalen Penson, I think we all thought was going to Kentucky. That seemed to be a done deal. And then he visits he does his official visit on June 7th. 2 days later, he commits,
Yep.
which
Like
is
that's a
it,
big deal. And then
that's
he had other big time offers too. Like he had one from Notre Dame. Like that's a really good get. Like I
Notre
really like the work they've done in the secondary.
yeah, his offers: Ball State, Austin P, Vanderbilt, UConn, Memphis, Notre Dame, UAB, Marshall, Georgia Southern, Troy, Kentucky, us, Indiana, West Virginia, Duke, Western Michigan, Missouri, which is the hell of a team to get an offer from right now.
Mhm.
Uh, and yet after all of that, and South Florida, after all of that, he visits us and not even, and then visits Notre Dame about a couple months later. And a week after visiting Notre Dame, sticks with us. He did get offered by Stanford after the fact, after he committed to us a day later, but we'll see it. I doubt that'll turn into much of anything. But still, this was a Norval, McKenzie, and Ricky Brumfeld recruitment. Like this is everyone on this staff is doing the work here,
Yeah.
and on the same page. I think more importantly, and talk and just what one person speaks on preaches on this team that goes everywhere. It's not defaulting to Brent or defaulting to some other thing like, oh, this is there is a team here, a literal team here that resonates with kids right now,
Yeah,
and
the
that's
new
hard to do.
coaches
That's
that
hard
were
to do.
hired are doing a good job too. Like Tyler Santucci, I know has been
Yeah,
very involved. Corey Peoples has done a good job. Trent McKnight's done a good job. Like I think Brent Key did a really good job of hiring guys that are connecting with kids and doing a good job recruiting. You know, we'll have to see the on field results, of
and
course.
I
But
remember, and I remember one of the really early hires was one of like the, I forgot if it was one of the main recruiting coordinators they got was like one of the guys, I forgot his name, which I hate, but like was massive in the Georgia high school football world and like was the guy to go get if you want to go recruit in the backyard.
yeah.
So the priority was always there. Like they knew what the mission was and they're doing it. Um, are there any other guys here you would want like really want to stick some extra notes on?
Um, Well, I do think the most recent commit, Isaiah Groves, is worth highlighting. Like, I think he's going to be a guy that gains a lot of steam. I think him and JP Powell as a running back duo for the future is pretty nice. I think, like,
Yeah,
I think those two guys are going to be, you know, we'll see what Jamal Haynes does after this season. I know he's a junior, and a lot of running backs leave early, no matter where they're supposed to get drafted. But
yeah.
they've done a good job recruiting the running back room, and those guys are pretty dynamic. Like I've liked what I've seen on film of them, so I do want to highlight those two.
Groves was looking at Minnesota or Northwestern before, as Kelly Quinlan puts it, a life altering visit to the Flats changed his recruitment completely and led to today's commitment. So the story works. Something works about it. And I mean, the value of Georgia Tech is it is quite incredible. And relaying that message to guys like, hey, playing football for us isn't just yes, you could go play for a much more glamorous team, much more historic team, place that got more wins, where you might make more money now, but you are not going to be set up professionally and athletically better combined in the Southeast than probably at Tech, which is a massive selling point. And I mean, if you can get a recruit to Tech, like that's something. Our admit rate is not plummeting, but it is not going up at all right now. It is not going up. So this is the way. If you want to go to school here, being an athlete is a very very good way to make that happen. Um, yeah, this is fantastic. I mean, yeah, all in all, this is. I think we're in a fun spot. This is just wild to see. Just to like see these pop up and people being like greatly impressed at what Tech is doing right now. It's that if anything, I think is going to be a fun summer story. To just probably won't change all that much because recruiting's only like that's a tweet and that's a story basically. And then we come out here and create 25 to 30 minutes of podcast content about it. Um, but it's a narrative that it's one of those little things that's just going to add up and help make this season as from the start, I think be better. Even if we only go 6-6 again, which schedule wise I would not blame them if they did. Injuries, you have no idea how this is going to go, but the floor is absolutely being raised, and I think that's a really important thing.
Yep, and you keep winning. Theoretically, you should be in play for more guys. Like a lot of kids want to go to a place where they're going to win, and they still have to prove they can win at a higher level. But I do think that could be on the way. But that's something they got to go get done. So I still think there is potentially another level to reach there, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, no, I agree. Who's your dynasty team you're gonna do in NCAA football?
Well, obviously, I should be doing Tech, but I do think the first team I'm going to do is my first alma mater, Georgia Southern, which I know
Nice.
maybe a lot of Tech fans may not love that, but
Oh, it's fine.
it's
That's
just
fine.
I know Georgia Southern's not at the top of most hated, so I feel like I
It's
could
it,
choose a
it's a
lot
good
worse.
it's a good program to do the carry from the bottom kind of thing. Like
Exactly.
them and Kennesaw. I saw Kennesaw State might be a popular option there too, being brand spanking new, like being basically the bottom of the food chain of all of FBS right now. Uh,
There's something about Statesboro, Georgia for me, man.
if it works, it works. My sister almost went to school
Sure.
there. Um, awesome. I don't know who I'm gonna start with. Maybe. Oh, I think we're Twitch streaming, so I think I gotta start with Tech and then see what happens from there.
That's the thing.
Um,
Like, I may spray the board. Like I'm definitely going to dip my toe in the MAC a little bit. Like
yeah.
somewhere like Kent State or Akron might need my help.
There
The
you go. Yeah.
Conference USA has a lot of programs you can choose from too. So,
Anyone from the All State 12?
oh god. Uh, I mean, I have an affinity for Kansas football. I'm picking them to win the Big 12 this year, but they're kind of like
Wow.
they're good now. It's not like Les Miles, Kansas. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Like I'd have to think about that one. I'm
I
sure a lot of people might say Colorado.
I would not even put money on Colorado doing anything positive this season, but that's just me. Also, I do not give
Don't donate your money to the casino.
don't need to do that. Donate your money to the AT fund or something else.
Yep.
If you want to put your money somewhere where it is clearly turning into something good. Jackson, I really appreciate your help here. This was fun. Help me understand better what's going on too at a much more deeper level with these guys. So we'll know the names to look out for.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, I said Akshay would be here, but he is not. Sadly, we just me and Jake for the rest of this episode. Jake's got a chance to listen to the part that I just did with Jackson, and as I said, there's a shot one more commit would land in between recording sessions, and sure enough, one did. Xavier Canales from Douglas High School, who's a three-star offensive lineman, committed this during this afternoon. So that puts our count up to 17 commits, puts us in the 16th best recruiting class in the country, which, reminder, that is partially a function of count of recruits you have as well as skill. So there is a little bit of a leg up there for just knocking out so many so early. So that will even out properly down in the next few months. And he's going to try and help out recruit his teammate from Douglas High School, a four-star defensive back, Jonte Gilbert. And Lord knows we need some defensive backs. So that would be a
Mhm.
huge pull if he can make that work. Jake, did you have any impressions from what Jackson said about our crew and just that whole theme of people sticking with Tech? It seems.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing that I kind of took away, and this is partially a function of being here longer, knowing more town names, knowing more teams, more high schools, but like Loganville, Raven Gap, Sandy
Mhm.
Creek, McDonough, Decatur, Cartersville, Decula, Covington, Warner Robins. It feels like Norcross.
Yep.
That diversity in places Georgia Tech is pulling people from. I think that's pretty notable. Those are also, a decent mix of four stars are getting to stay home, but I mean that at the end of the day, yeah, five stars are talented kids and whatnot. But if Georgia Tech is assessing, evaluating, and then successfully, I guess, doing the talent acquisition on this many athletes, I think that's a sign of a functioning, analyst staff, a functioning set of relationships, and it's just at least uh, maybe it's because it's Decatur,
Yeah.
Decatur.
Yeah.
It's Raven Gap. I drove past there recently. Maybe it's just the Warner Robins. I see it on the radar on the map all the
Hmm.
time. I don't know. That's my instant gut reaction. It is a long list. It feels like a list that's filled out early.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know we said today we of course did get Xavier Canales. Not gonna say that I'm ever gonna say that there's too many oh offensive line recruits that you can grab because I feel like that's just a place we really lacked a lot of depth for quite a while at this point.
Yeah.
So I, the more the merrier at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not a very
I I
very
I, I get what you're saying.
there's no arbitrage here. There's no angle. It's just, hey, if it's a talented set of kids that want to come here, sign them up. And yeah, a lot of that recruiting class does seem to be based on just the sheer number of kids. But hey, if they're filling out a lineup and a lineup with some talented kids, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier you can never have enough quarterbacks. You can definitely never have enough offensive linemen that
Yep.
you can throw out there. That is crucial, especially considering how skilled our offense is. Whatever you can do to shore that up is a great thing for us. I think I saw in one of the articles, I believe this was the one on Jackets Online, that the idea is he will be the potential long-term replacement for Jordan Williams down the line. So
Yep.
that is hopeful. Of course, get a lot of guys. This is college recruiting. Not everything pans out the way you think. I just saw the number one
Yep.
edge commit. Oh, excuse me. I just saw the number one edge commit in the country just dropped from USC. So stuff happens. There's no guarantee everyone stays, but I think there is definitely. But things are moving in the right direction. And yeah, as you mentioned, this is a lot of very different parts of Georgia that are being represented by this recruiting class right now, which speaks to the extent to how well the team is doing at fixing the problem of recruiting our own backyard and getting the entire state filled out in doing so.
And I want to give you your flowers on air. Just the succinct way that you said that Jeff didn't understand the product that he was selling.
Yeah.
I think we've dedicated whole episodes on this show to trying to get to that point right there.
Yeah.
And like, the fact that and this is independent of recruiting. Well, I guess it's still recruiting because you got to recruit your own
Yeah.
roster these
Right.
days. But like the fact that a lot more people stuck around, a lot more players stuck around this past year, then well, I guess last year was tough with the transition
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
whatnot, and there's still a big question mark on future of NIL, future of player compensation and things like that. But at the end of the day, like if you can create some of that consistency where previously there was not as much of it, or in a world where other people aren't seeing some level of consistency, I think it's a sign that maybe Brent and Buster and even new faces, Tyler, maybe it's signs that they understand the product that they're selling and
Right.
doing a good job of selling it. And certainly just based on sheer numbers and diversity of where they're coming from, it seems like it.
Yeah. I've seen for those that want to like really see the recruits actually talk, Bryce Kuhn has done a lot of interviews that he's posted on Instagram, on Twitter, probably on Instagram too. But a repeated note through a lot of number of those has been that these kids are really believe the plan that's put in place by Brent and the staff and the vision that they have. And so I would love to be in the room for one of these recruiting discussions with parents and the athletes just to hear like what is the pitch of Georgia Tech they're giving, because this is what like Brent's sales calls to these recruits are some of the most important pitch meetings for the entirety of Georgia Tech because of the prominence that the football team holds in just this how Georgia Tech is viewed in the public sphere. So
Yeah.
it's very encouraging to see. Um, yeah,
And I think just the results so far are, I would say, kind of speak for decent progress. And
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's gonna be tough sledding up against this schedule. And of course, these are recruits who aren't necessarily going to be a part of this upcoming year. Like
no,
it's a process, and the fact that people are eager, I think, shows they're hungry and responding to that success that players and coaches put together last year, despite some very, very, very talked about, transition, turnover and coaching changes that did occur. So
yeah. No, the to your point about the how I described Jeff, it does help that I've had about 4 years, 5 years to think about this. So I hope I would have had a concise way to explain that whole thing. Um,
yeah.
to I talk about explaining things. Explain to us what people can find with Section 103.
Yeah, I was actually rifling through my closet before we got on here because I was like, man, I feel like I talk a lot about similar stuff. And I went back to basics. I went back to the first thing that I got from Section 103 because I think even after all this time, it's probably my favorite and perhaps the one that I wear the most. Certainly the one that I remember the most in terms of grabbing. And that's the I'm a Rambling Wreck from Georgia Tech and a hell of an engineer shirt. It's to the point. It's straightforward. I think that really describes a lot of what they do. It is Georgia Tech stuff that Georgia Tech people like, resonate with, and things that mean things to Georgia Tech folks. I'm a Rambling Wreck from Georgia Tech and a hell of an engineer. Everyone knows what that means. And the best place to go tell everyone exactly what you're all about too is section103.com. You can visit them at section103.com. And remember, free shipping on orders over 70 and use our code FTRS blog. FTRS. Wow. Rusty.
Just
Um,
FDRS.
yeah, I know. You take a week off and lose it there. But as ever, go and check them out for sure.
I can't wear that shirt. I'm not an engineer.
Oh, you can.
I feel weird.
It's an expression.
Imagine telling me, yeah, it's just the whole. I would always. I sometimes when I would sing the song, I'd change the lyrics to myself if I was just singing it in my head.
You're a hell
Just a
you're a
hell of
hell of a Jack Purdy
a
or
hell of
something like
a
that.
hell of a shell engineer. I don't know how you say it. That was
A
just
shell of an engine.
no,
No,
no, that's not where that doesn't work at
no,
all.
no.
No, no.
We need to change topics, change gears, go
Uh,
down the rabbit hole.
uh, well, speaking of graduates, Dennis Scott recently got his master's at Tech. He finished this past spring, or no, last spring, recently enough. And this past earlier this was it earlier this week, late last week. He's works for NBA TV, and their studios are at the CNN building, or the Warner Brothers building, right next to Cambridge Pavilion. And Jay Batt and Damon Stoudemire took a little stroll into the studio before a segment and brought him his jersey, which was permanently his now because his number 4 is now going to be permanently retired in the rafters at Cambridge Pavilion as of this year.
Yeah, you can't even expense the IRS mileage rate if
No,
you're
they took a
walking
walk. They
across the
literally took a
street.
walk.
So
Yeah.
this is some great, no, it's a well-earned reward award for, the 1990 Sporting News Player of the Year. Like
Yep.
Dennis Scott on that first Final Four team was, the guy. It is well earned and well appreciated, and I'm really eager to see that hanging up there because yes, Ring of Honor, Ring of Recognition, all those various different levels of baseball stuff that's gone on lately. I think this is the first true retirement we've seen, at least since we've been doing this podcast. So
For
very
basketball, yeah, it's
excited
yeah
for that one.
they haven't had one for basketball in a long time. I think
Mhm.
the only person I know that's shown that like I have seen and you could like know was there who has their retired jersey was shoot what's his face uh uh I'm so mad. Mark
Harpering
Price. It was Price. Mark Price.
Price.
Price was
I was
Price.
going to say there's an interesting number of the men's basketball boys, but there's also pretty strict requirements
Yeah,
for this, and we can also not unbox the football Clint Castleberry
right.
box at this
Yeah,
point too. So
which they'll have to replace where they list that in the stadium because they part of the stadium that's coming down had Clint Castleberry's name on it. That's where they had the retired number section. So that's getting moved somewhere. I don't know where. Yeah, no, it's good to have more of Lethal Weapon 3 up permanently in the rafters. Like that is a necessary historical fact part, like one of the most important historical parts of Georgia Tech basketball. And if there's any one purpose for retired numbers, it is to memorialize the best moments of your team's history. And so doing that is makes a lot of sense.
and if we can talk specifically about retired jerseys, those 1990 Georgia Tech jerseys, I think are, oh gosh, this is a really spicy take, but maybe out of any sport, the one that I'm like, that is a Georgia Tech uniform. White, little bit of navy and gold piping.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
No,
an
it's nice.
almost perfect uniform, and the stripe on the pants, that's kind of like the Letterman cuff look.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's a really excellently done.
Those
I
uniforms are
want to,
great. Yeah.
yeah. So
I totally agree.
yeah.
Um, so we've got that to look forward to. That will be a game, a season long celebration, but a particular game I know Dennis will show up to at some point. He only has to walk across the street from the studio, anyways. For that celebration. So we'll look for details down the line for that. Shifting to the U.S. Open, which drove. My goodness, what a U.S. Open this was. But at the Tech specific point of view, Hiroshi Tai did qualify as an amateur. He did not get the low amateur. He missed the cut at 9 over, which was only 2 shots off. This was definitely a hard tournament. The U.S. Open is supposed to be the hardest on the PGA Tour circuit. Technically not a PGA Tour event, but that aside, he was right there. Will Shipley got the low amateur again as he did at the Masters, and I think he was far and away expected to get that nom, so it's not really a surprise here. But Hiroshi Tai got to play Pinehurst too, and put on some sort of show. He shot not much. He shot better than Phil Mickelson. He did that, which isn't saying much, but he still did that.
And Pinehurst looks like it was playing real narrow this week. So
Yeah,
on top of a stressful month of golf, where you're basically going straight out of finals into several weeks of essentially. I mean, for him, it was winner. Everyone goes home.
yeah.
At the end of individual play there. So definitely one to note there. And yes, Pinehurst did look like he was playing pretty narrow, pretty sandy on the rough rather than the open grass. So I think that is certainly something to note there as well. And I'm sure, at some point you're in it for the cool experiences now that you've notched all of those.
Right.
That's
Yeah. Yeah. That was a. I'm sure that was a. I'm glad to be here kind of thing. That is not a course you just kind of just walk up to and do well at. You got to have some real time and experience dedicated to Pinehurst to
yeah.
be able to navigate that course and basically, or just be Bryson DeChambeau and hit the best sand shots of your life with the tournament on the line. I don't know, something like that.
That was an incredible finish,
That
by the way.
shot was
I
insane.
say this as a Bryson agnostic, person, but rough to into the sand and then boom to give yourself a pretty sinkable putt.
It
That's
was
great.
incredible. That was incredible. Yeah, that was some incredible golf. I will not take that away from Bryson. Save my feelings about live golf. On
Yeah.
to softball. Sara Beth Allen today got named a academic All-American. She is only not ACC All-American, not ACC All-Academic, all that kind of stuff, local, whatever. Though this was national academic All-American. Did Sara Beth Allen get? She is only
Mhm.
the third softball jacket to receive an honor like this. So that's really absolutely love that. And I think I mentioned in the past when I talked with Coach Morales about just kind of like the diversity of the majors on this team and where they're pursuing academics. Like the softball team is one of the best examples of our athletes pursuing the diversity of majors that Tech has. There's at least in some of the commits as well. They've got some. It's more than just I'm just doing business, which is the default, major for a lot of uh for a lot of the athletes, but it's something to look at. It's good. It's good. We want things like this. This makes sense for Tech to be academically highly inclined and athletically highly inclined. That is our mix.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly well earned. Academic All-American is kind of that. What did we talk about last week? Definition, or 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Definition of scholar athlete. I mean, shoot, it ties into last week with the total person program, but
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
that's
think that's a solid thing. What was the other one? Golf had one of these as well, not national academic All American. Uh,
we had a couple tennis ACC all academic team, six from men's tennis, which is a very strong showing, and then seven from the women's tennis team. So most of the roster of both of the tennis teams
yeah,
are all
yeah,
ACC academic. So
yeah. I see
work.
I see in the press release all seven Yellow Jackets were starters in the doubles or singles lineup. So basically everyone that played consistently was also killing it academically. So that's
Yep.
that's absolutely awesome to see. And then yep, okay. So well yeah, there you go. That's awesome. Love to see that part of our expert of our specialties as Georgia Tech getting put to good work that way.
Yep.
Lastly, want to finish with I mentioned this. I put this out on our Twitter account. Brent Key he was spoken at alumni dinner recently, and he had some camps that he was also talking to, where he was just there was just a lot of like just cool like little details about the last couple of years and his feelings in particular about a school out east. Jake,
So
yeah, go ahead.
question. Did you take these notes or
I did
that?
not.
Okay.
These were posted on Reddit. These are not mine.
Gotcha.
Um, so it's out there publicly. You can go find this document that we're
Yeah.
referring to on the Reddit post out there. It was mostly talking about leadership. So he like gave a story about talking to coach how he kind of was trying to follow Coach O'Leary into coaching, and then it didn't work out the first time, but then worked out the second time at UCF. That part we all know about. Um, so there are some parts of the 2022 season that stuck out that are just really cool filler details. His first, and I'm quoting here from the document, Key's first 10 weeks of being the interim coach are a complete blur to him now. He explained that there was not a minute spent during the day worrying about becoming the permanent head coach, and he was only focused on that 22 season after he got tagged with the interim tag. But he was up to from midnight to 4 a.m. writing out plans for spring practice in the case he was still the head coach. So he was effectively working two different kinds of head coaching jobs at the exact same time and going on no sleep. Um, he described it as working 2 days in one, and hence why he lost 50 pounds. And you could probably see in the pictures his face did get a little thinner. You
So
can,
that's how I can do that.
yeah, just don't sleep and work two jobs on the same job. Yeah,
That's insane. That is an insane level of commitment, and I don't know. That's not what gives you a job, right?
no,
But
no,
clearly, that's the
you,
personification of those kind of trends that we've picked up on, and we allude to or state in no uncertain terms. He's Mister tech man's tech man, as
Yep.
they seem these days. If anyone's doing that with the capital T, I mean, he's putting that all on Front Street.
Even the football head coach pulls all-nighters at Georgia Tech.
Mhm.
Uh, he did mention the old guy, or the old guy being the previous guy. But he did mention they were only having two practices a week with no pads up until he got fired, which is, but that's insane. That is malpractice of a massive order, and that did not maintain as soon as Key was in charge. And the fact that they had a bunch of special teams issues, they addressed that. And I think we've talked about that some on the podcast. How they realized, yeah, we should maybe try on special teams and devote practice time to that, and they did. Um, he also started a quote leadership committee for the players, and one of the first things to come from that was Ace Ely asked if they could stop wearing suits and start wearing jewelry before games. Uh, and so just kind of let them be themselves a little bit more and just loosen up, like express themselves. I mean, you don't want to putting kids in a box when they're in a key development phase in their life is generally not a good recipe for trust, is from what I've found, and especially from other good coaches. So that was interesting. Um, yeah, and then I think he talked about also the next season how, or it's during 2022 we had, remember that. So remember that Duke game? It was at Duke, and we had a very inexplicable punt where we punted on the plus side of the field that we never should have punted on the plus side of the field. He mentioned that punt. He was like, that was a mistake. Uh, and he called Chip Long an idiot for some of those decisions. So,
But that's something that you have to learn on, like as a first time
yeah,
coach. Like,
yeah,
that the buck is going to stop, but sometimes you don't know to stop the buck until it
right,
happens to
right.
you.
The field goal decision that we had against Georgia isn't mentioned on this, but I think just that idea of like you have to coach through your initial like there are still growing pains that are going to happen the first time you're a head coach, even if it's seemingly blatantly obvious decisions. Being the guy that's actually pulling the trigger or not pulling the trigger on those decisions, that's still a learning process that you have to go through. Um,
Yeah.
and so I have forgiveness there about that. Um,
It
and
just happens. I think none of this stuff surprised me is my upshot on all this.
yeah.
And I encourage people to go Google and Reddit just so it's not a, you know, we read a doc type situation. But
uh, as the last bit here is just mentioned, like, yeah, the trust and relationships is they're strong on campus right now with the group that he's formed around him, and that speaks for itself through the recruits that we've gotten as well, that they believe in the unit that we have. And when you can believe that, that makes things a lot easier. You can stack success on top of success when you do things
yep.
like that. So even if we maybe, as we mentioned, schedule's hard, even if we may not have the record that may reflect the energy and positivity and I think potential successes he may have, um, they are doing the right things. Like that is 1,000% the case.
And now we got the whole summer to both dig in and get nervous about it. So isn't
Yeah,
that
man. By the way, Florida State is currently a 13-point favorite. That does not make sense to me.
Jack's about to do Jack things? But no, I agree. I agree on this one. Go for
That's all. No, that's it. That was
it.
no. I
No,
was just that.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
I was
agree.
like that. Just doesn't 13-point favorite now. I mean, I do not want to say I give betting advice, but my gut feels weird about that. That is as far as I will say.
Yep. Anyways,
Uh,
well, I think that's all we had, right?
yeah, I don't think you had any. I don't think you had trivia for me. So, uh, I think we'll go. I know you're going to trivia, so you get to answer the questions tonight. To tonight. Um,
Jack is like, please make your semi-weekly donation to the Wild Heaven Trivia Fund.
I will be there tomorrow night, not tonight. Well, all right. Akshay, sorry you missed it. Jake, where can the people find us?
Yes, as ever, you can find us at fromtherumbleseat.com. You can email us from therumble@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at FDRSblog, at JakeGrant98, or at Jack Nicholas. You can find Section 103 there as well, at Section 103 and Section103.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at From the Rumble Seat. And you can find this podcast wherever fine podcasts are sold. Thanks again to Jackson, and congrats to Jackson. Thank you for coming on. Yeah, tell your friends we're here. Tell your friends that they should read Jackson's stuff too. And until we speak again, good night, good luck, and go Jackets.